So remind me, Chris Jorna. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, that's the one.
Gotcha. Okay, Chris. AI is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also, most of us look at it and go, well, that all looks a bit rubbish.
Mm.
But AI isn't really always, actually, in fact, a lot of it's not really about, I think, the visuals. It's actually really how you support that filmmaking process, whether that's logistics, I guess, things like, I don't know, working out how many faces you got to feed or mouths you got to feed kind of thing. There's sort of probably some AI in there somewhere, editing, all that kind of stuff. How have you been using AI?
So AI does get thrown around a lot, and one thing with the workflow where we've used it, where I really like it, is it's become in a supporting role.
Right.
And we were able to use it in a way that it doesn't change the entire image, but just changes the background. So we were able to keep the foreground the same. We were able to keep the authentic, real performance of that actor, of the costume, of the set design, and just replace the background itself. That's kind of the main aspect in which we use it.
So take it back a few steps then.
Yes, of course.
So run us past what you've been doing recently using AI.
Cool. Yeah, so I just made a short film, and it's about the Find My Phone detective that lives inside your phone.
Right.
Now the question is, how do you visualize that? Especially, so I work in virtual production, but I'm also a film director and storyteller.
Right.
And as an early stage director, I don't directly have the budget to work in those big LED stages, as much as I love them. So we had to find a way to tell that story, and I recently found this workflow, which was an open source workflow made by Mick Mahler, which allowed you to replace any background by just, using an image itself.
Got you. So quick question.
Mm-hmm.
What was that when you said sort of how do you tell that story, and you decided you decided on a particular methodology to it? What's that based on? Is that based on the story, or how did that come up as a decision to make to either use those sort of, or just go out and run and gun on the street kind of thing? What was that decision process?
It's been a story that I've been wanting to make for a bit. And when I first saw something about that workflow, the main thing that convinced me about it was the fact that we could use it in a way that we just still keep the foreground the same, because a lot of the AI tools, they completely change the image, but this keeps that actress performance and those things the same. And that kind of got me intrigued. So I did a little test, and it actually started working quite well. And after doing more and more tests, we started building the team.
So was that a creative decision? So what I'm thinking is Verse is a story about boy meets girl on the street in London, which you could just grab a couple of cameras with and all that kind of stuff. What was it? What the aspects of the story that you decided, or how it was set, or what time frame it was set, or how what was that decision process versus doing it and telling it on the streets of London?
So Low Power Mode is a universe that I'm building about a civilization that lives in your phone.
Right. Okay.
And the key thing with this universe is I want to explore the new ways in which we can tell stories and experience stories. All of these are changing at such a rapid pace right now.
Right.
And the project in itself, being a quite sci-fi story, lends itself quite well into that.
So it's the sci-fi-ness of the story that was unfilmable any other way as an independent filmmaker.
Exactly,
right?
it was.
Is that what you're saying? Hey?
Exactly.
Cool.
And then when it came to how to use or which tools to use, we first just started writing the story and tried to get it at its strongest format without having any considerations about any tech or anything else. And once we had that, we built a shot list, and based off each shot, we then thought, okay, what's the best workflow to do this? And each shot, we also weighed in how important that shot is to the story.
Got you.
So some tools, for example, there was, we would see, okay, how much budget, how much time would it take? how much budget and time would it take to realize this shot? And is it important enough to the story to accommodate for that? So every decision in the project has been story driven in terms of what tools to use, in terms of any details within the film. They all originate from the story.
And that's the important thing. Were there any shots, type of shots that you had to have sort of a real sort of, I guess, what's the word? You were torn to decide to whether or not to do or to do.
Definitely.
Because of the either complexities or the cost or sort of what was an obvious kind of shot?
Definitely. There was one shot in the scene which would use a completely different workflow, which would be fully AI generated. All the other things would always be combined with real life elements. But that one shot, just to put in context, right? The Find My Phone detective, he runs you through what he does. He hits a gong, makes a sound. He pins someone on the map. And then when it comes to freezing the cards, he says, and now freeze. And two people in a big card costume get sprayed with, this steam that's coming from up there. And they get frozen into place. And that specific shot would require us to have two new actors, stunts, visual effects.
Right.
And all of that would take quite a bit of the budget, but it's not the key of the story. It would be comedic relief. But in the end, the story is a story about choosing between your career and your personal life. Because as the thief who stole the phone is about to go into airplane mode, our detective now needs to decide, okay, well, he looks at the game plan, which tells him, okay, I need to press the red reset button.
Right.
And he needs to decide in that moment, am I going to, stick to my duties, to my work and press the button, or am I not going to press it and, maybe stay alive, keep my friends alive? What do I do? And that's what the story is about. And that scene about with the cards,
right? It's
a fun scene, but it's not important enough to the story to justify the budget. So what we did is we shot him just doing that voiceover, and we got a really good performance as well when he was saying it. But now in the editing room, I've cut that scene because it's fast paced and it takes you out of the flow.
So if you'd done it, it would have cost you a load of time and money.
No,
but
because we would have, if we would have done it, we would have done it with having it generated fully by AI.
So you would have done it with AI, but because it was very cost effective, you didn't feel guilty about actually not using it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's our reason on which tool to use for that.
Right.
Having a slightly less authentic approach and not having real actor performances is, concessions we had to make budget-wise, and we were able to make those concessions or make that decision because story-wise, that moment wasn't important enough to justify spending that budget on. And even in the end, it's good that we didn't do that because, or didn't fully do that stunt, because then we would be committed and having to use that shot. Because now in the editing room, my suspicion is confirmed. It's not important enough to the story to keep in.
So would you say then there's actually quite an interesting use of AI would be to almost do all of your shot list AI generated, and then going, actually these are the ones, these ones are worth spending the time and effort on, so you've discounted the ones that aren't going to work anyway.
It helps with visualizing, but I wouldn't fully recommend that approach because there's a lot of magic that can still happen in the room when you're working with actors and those happy surprises.
What I meant was sort of almost like a first cut, or even like a storyboard.
Yeah,
where you can still put together almost the complete film, but it's all AI generated. But you've not had to go yet because you've still got the stage of actually filming the actors and talent and all that kind of stuff. And what I mean is that you've got a few sets, you've got a few shots that you can actually go, well, that is a lot of time and money. We can probably do it this way.
I mean, in an ideal world, sure, but I think from a practical perspective, we already had so many R&D tests, and I mean, I had a whole month of testing out different things. I mean, for the specific shots that you needed, it's good. I mean, one, for example, is we had the opening shot, which is where the phone gets robbed and we zoom inside the phone. That's something that took about 7-8 days, multiple different tests. I dressed as like a robber in London with a camera and just ran around like, testing out and shooting those scenes.
Right.
And it took a lot of different tests to figure out, okay, this is how we're going to do it. If it can inform you how you want to do it, then it's worth it. I mean, there's one key thing I've learned from virtual production is, to do it in pre-production and to have those decisions made early. I mean, so many costs, unnecessary costs, oftentimes come in projects because decisions get kind of made too late.
Yeah.
And so there, it is helpful for those key moments, such as that opening shot, instead of, figuring it out later, testing and pre-visualizing it. And even you can even do some of that pre-visualization with your phone or other. But there it does quite help with, knowing then once you are on set that you can be efficient and can shoot it. I mean, we shot 35 VFX shots in one day with a completely new technology, with a team that's never worked with it before. And we didn't have to cut out any shot. We were able to get all of it. But that's because we really prepared very thoroughly.
Great point about that sort of side of virtual production, and fundamentally it's a technology, a bit like AI, that's trying to help you out. And it's one of those things about that creativity. Being creative can be quite expensive, as you sort of almost finding out, trying to put all of that time and effort into understanding those AI tools, which you've learned and now you understand, so you'll be more efficient the next time, all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Do you feel on that sort of creative journey as a director, all of that pre-production can be quite constraining? Because as a creative, as a director, sometimes things don't work, so should we just go over to that space and do something quite differently, in the fly? But do you think it constrains that?
No, I did not find it constraining, because we still had flexibility in set, but in a way the preparation gave us flexibility rather than the opposite.
Right.
Instead of us kind of running around like trying to get this and this, and by already having, once you have a solid base, you can stray from it confidently, and what you want. And in a way, that preparation that we had helped us in that way. I don't feel like I was locked in to anything. Of course there were some constraints, but those were also things that were thoroughly thought about, and we still had time to do like little experiments and things with the actors on set. Right. But I think having a good base is not, as a director, constraining. I think it helps. I need to make so many decisions on the day. I need to be quite decisive.
Yeah.
And already having a couple of those things where I've already made my mind up about, that helps. Then I can new requests, I can spend them, give them my full attention.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the experience of a director or anyone on a film set, right? I guess it's if you've got to know your craft inside out in order to be able to break it.
Yeah,
kind of thing. And so the interesting thing about AI or VP a couple of years ago was the fact that there weren't that many people who were experts enough to be able to then decide how to break it. Mm-hmm. But AI is so new that whatever you're sort of learning today, that someone who's learning it in 2 years is going to be learning probably an entirely different set of tools as well, right?
It's completely different.
How have you seen that change since you first sort of, I guess, maybe do a short bit about actually sort of when you first saw AI was the first time you went, oh, hold on, I mean, this is quite a cool thing. How long ago was that? And what was it? And then take us through how that's changed since the first time you ever saw it.
First time I used it on a project was 2 years ago. And I used it, same universe, low power mode, to visualize it. Now looking back at it, I mean, all of those shots are like these extreme slow motion shots, because you could only like generate like 6 frames and all the hands were like all weird, but it was able to kind of visualize and tell that story. I learned a lot from it, but also saw, okay, it's not ready yet. So I
Right.
put it on hold, kind of stayed in touch with it. And that kind of process of, just occasionally looking into it kind of stayed until that one moment where I saw about this workflow. And when I saw it and when I did those initial tests, I realized, okay, now is the time. Now we can do something, because we're able
The banging.
we're able to have the the real performances still there. We're doing a traditional VFX pipeline, but it's become more approachable.
Right.
It's not that we're completely changing the image and you have these, because oftentimes with AI videos, I feel like it loses some of that authenticity. It loses, you don't really feel those emotions. But with this year, we still have, we did a film with AI, and the biggest cost, or our most budget, went to the crew and cast.
Yeah.
And it's, we were able to really focus with our, just focusing on the foreground, focusing with our costumes. We had a super talented costume designer who make these, unique costumes, and very talented team, really focused on just that foreground, because we didn't need to worry about building a huge room or building a huge set.
Right.
We didn't even have to build the worlds in 3D, which was a huge time saver. We were able to iterate very quickly. So we first made, the backgrounds. We just made those two environments. I created one side of the room. Once I was happy with that, I created the other side of the room, used pictures of objects or props and made them into digital ones, added them within there. And then the cool thing is there is a tool which is named Quen, but I probably, in a couple of months it'll change, it's not really worth going into it. But the main thing that it does, it allows you to change that camera perspective for each shot. So once we had the big room, afterwards with the shot list, we were able to, create all the different angles. And that's what we did as well.
So traditionally, virtual production, how would you create the environment, the backplate in virtual production?
You'd create it in 3D with any software, like, for example, Unreal Engine. And then once you have it in 3D, you can track where the real camera is. And then, any setup or any shot that you want to do, you'll be able to get the background to update live with that.
And then, so tell us the difference between the effort, the resources and speed required to do all of it in 3D versus what you did for your latest project.
So if you build it in 3D, you can either go two routes. One is you build everything from scratch. You model all the things, you build all the textures, which...
And that means going into a program like Unreal Engine or Blender, and you have to have an artist who can build all of this kind of stuff.
Exactly, which one is, to get it to look very good, it's going to take a lot of time, and it's quite costly, and it's very high-end workflow. The other approach you can do, which is more approachable, which is kit bashing, which is where you take existing, objects and environments, and you kind of build them together to make what you want to make.
Gotcha.
Also, their thing, though, is it still does take quite a bit of time. It's quite an extra complexity just running that 3D software. There is quite a... You need to have a camera tracking system. You need to have either an LED wall or green screen. And there is a lot of extra steps that are involved. And even iterations are a bit... if you want to change the shape of a certain object, that also does take a bit more time. Benefit of it is that you do work in real time and you can change lighting and others. But getting a photorealistic environment, quite costly, quite lengthy.
Compared to creating something real, like a set, like you'd have to have an entire art department. So it's probably, for something like a sci-fi, it's still quite effective and cost effective and resource, because otherwise someone's got to get carpenters and all sorts of prop people, right?
What we did was we generated a room, just a picture. And then from that single picture, we could get all our different angles. And then afterwards, through that workflow, you can even have the camera tracked in 3D in that room. So you're
talking about the AI, what you did in AI. So you went into an AI tool and created literally just a 2D picture.
Exactly.
Like you would do, I don't know. In some 2D program, almost like Photoshop, right? You can do that kind of thing now. You gave it to this other AI, and that other AI created a 3D environment.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it didn't create a full 3D environment. It just focused on that specific shot. And the cool thing is it can even bring in shadows, interactions with the scene. And the main thing is you don't need a green screen. You don't need an LED wall.
Right.
All you need is just a white wall. Just a white wall to cut out that person. And a white wall you can find almost anywhere. And that's a key thing. It's a pillar of this project is, it's approachable. We shot a whole sci-fi film with 35 VFX shots in one day in just a random studio in London with a white wall. And we were able to make that possible.
So what was your approach then? So before we get into the I'm just really interested in sort of your sort of process. Is that when you approached it, did you think about the final backplate before or after you shot the live? So you shot we
prepared every single backplate before.
Right.
I then created a real-time comp system with my laptop where I got 3 softwares to talk to each other over NDI.
Right.
And that allowed us to, it wasn't tracked, but it allowed the camera team to already see, okay, we're moving on to shot 2.1. Okay, we've got this background, and then they can light it together. And that really helped because, we're in a white room. How do we know where that environment is or how it looks like?
So you use the backplate that's already been created as a reference for the DOP to light the foreground. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah, as a reference. And a huge thing was once I had like one of the very first edits that, had just very like bad cutouts, etc. Just a quick setup. I showed it to another cinematographer friend, and he told me like after the first 30 seconds, he stopped paying attention to the backgrounds. He was just involved in the story and in the character.
Right.
And the key about that is I haven't done any of the VFX yet. All of that was achieved by the lighting of the real environment that matched with the virtual environment.
Right.
And that's huge props to the camera and lighting team. And it was because we had those rooms already prepared, we knew what the environment was going to look like. I didn't change afterwards. Once I'm in post-production, I completely changed the lighting or other, because when you get the lighting right, that goes so far. There's all these tools, how you relight and everything, but I think I'm a very firm believer of getting it right in camera, absolutely.
I mean, that's the sort of the VP workflow, right? So did they have a comp on set?
Yes, I had a real-time comp, which was just the camera feed.
Right.
And I used like, with Zoom calls, like how it cuts you out. I just used that.
Sort of super basic.
Super basic,
right.
Just with the background, this cutout, as if we're in a Zoom call. And that allowed us to have a visualization of what that would look like.
And that was enough for the DOP to sort of work out the lighting, everything as well.
Yeah.
And were you able, if for any reason it wasn't how you wanted it to be, have the opportunity to change that in post, like the lighting of the background or the foreground?
There is tools that can do that. I'm not a fan of them because they start changing my camera footage, that foreground, because the whole thing that I like is I want this untouched. I want to stay true to what the actor gave us on set. I don't want, even if I relight it, the skin slightly changes, other things.
Right.
I don't want to touch that. I want to keep that authenticity all the way till the end.
Got you. So that means that you're so you're applying, so the AI, and correct me if I'm wrong, just playing this back to you. Mm-hmm. So the AI, you created the sets in, which you would normally, I guess, so in a traditional film workflow, that's what you normally do anyway, right? You say with paint and wood and all these things, you create the set, then you're acted in it. So it's a similar sort of thing to that, rather than requiring on a sort of a very sort of back-heavy VFX scenario.
Yeah, and one thing we also did to kind of make sense of it is I had that room, I created a top-down floor plan, and then we were able to line that up with the floor plan inside of the studio where we were. And that just allowed us to figure out, okay, well, everything that is shooting in this direction, we're going to shoot all those shots first. And then afterwards, we're going to shoot everything that's going in another direction, because normally when we're shooting a scene, right? Just like the setup here, right? You've got one angle shooting this way, you've got one angle shooting that way and here. But the main thing is, if we just have one, white wall behind us or just an LED stage, we need to make sure that we shoot it each time we switch where the camera is looking, we need to, you know, change that part as well and change that virtual environment, and that gets kind of confusing. So what we did is we first shot the entire story from one angle, and then did all those scenes, and then afterwards we shot everything that's facing the south side through the other side, the other angle.
Yeah, right. Got you. Okay, so you approached it that way. So what were talk us through a little bit about the sort of this pipeline that you mentioned earlier on, and how, what does that look like? And we could probably do this for like 2 or 3 hours. You explain it. So you sort of have to paraphrase it a bit.
Course.
Otherwise, everyone will fall asleep.
Of course.
Well, some of the people actually won't fall asleep. And so just sort of work, talk us through sort of the tools that you used, what they did to you, and also a bit around this idea that you used a white background rather than green or LED or blue.
So before I go into the specific tech that we used, because, you know, mentioned that, you know, maybe people fall asleep, I think might be good to give the same motivation speech I gave the morning of the shoot, and that might get, you know, everyone ready, and then I'll go into what
might do, but we might just get edited out.
Fair. So, you know how the day before the shoot, you're in bed and you're thinking about every possible thing that can go wrong.
Yeah, maybe.
And so I had a nightmare that night.
Right.
And my nightmare was as follows. We were touring the film.
Right.
And we're touring it in the United States.
Right.
But we didn't end up signing up for a film festival. We signed up for a basketball tournament. And there I was with our DP, surrounded by NBA legends, getting absolutely smoked. But we're not here to play basketball. We're here to make movies. And that's something I know a little about.
Right.
And that's something I think we all know a little about. So let's make a great movie. And with that, let's look into how we made this movie. And the main thing that we, you know, pipeline-wise did is we need 4 ingredients for each shot. What we need is what we filmed with the camera, that scene with the actor, and we need to create a cutout out of that. That cutout we make into a black and white alpha matte is what it's called.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
We have it on black and white. We create a cutout of it on gray. We have a camera track that allows us to figure out, okay, this is the way the camera moved, and our background. Once we have those 4 things, we can run them through the workflow, and afterwards we can get our shot as we want it. Of course, there'll be more steps, you know, around to clean things up, but the core of it is creating those 4 ingredients in the best possible way you can.
Right.
And then running it through.
And that's very similar to, I guess, a traditional green screen, blue screen process, right? So what you're after are those plates.
But the cool thing with here, so it's running through Comfy UI, and we're using WAN 2.1. But the nice thing about it is there's 2 aspects. One is the rotoscoping. It's when you do a cutout, the most difficult part is oftentimes the edges. It is able to, you know, use a bit of generative AI around the edges to make those a bit better and blend in nicer.
Right.
And as well, it's able to create interactions with, you know, the environment. It can create, you know, shadow behind you or other. And it's able to track the camera from even very small, minute movements. And so those allow you to not have to use a green screen anymore. We're not going to replace... The thing with a green screen is oftentimes you get all that green that goes on your face. And
the green spill.
A green spill, exactly, quite difficult. But with a white wall, all you needed was basically just a nice, you know, way to cut it out. And the easiest way to do a cutout is if I've literally got, like, you know, a white... Like, if you want to cut out my head now, it's going to be quite easy because that line is quite visible. Whereas, you know, here it will get a bit more difficult.
Got you. So so using white as effectively, I guess, the chroma key, and then use it. So you mentioned 2 technologies. You mentioned Comfy UI, and what was the other one?
The precise model was WAN 2.1.
Of Comfy Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So tell us a little bit about what is Comfy UI.
So Comfy UI is open source. It's a place where anyone that creates a new tool, can release that code publicly, and then you can use that instead of, you've got other services which are very like, protective, like we don't release our code. You can pay subscription and then you can use our service. Right. This is more like, okay, you can build whatever you want to build.
So, but specifically for what purpose? What is Comfy UI?
Any like AI, I mean, you can use it for image, video, but the main thing is it's an aggregator. It's one where any tools can, it's like a playbox, and you get lots of different Lego pieces from all around the world, and you can build.
So a bit like a, what do they call it? So it's sort of like a hub. Yeah. So
in a way, and everything runs locally as well. So you run it off your laptop. It's not that you have a subscription and run it off another computer. Although, here's the thing, it is quite demanding to run on a laptop. My laptop would absolutely blow up.
Right.
But what I'm doing is I am renting a GPU in Finland and I'm renting one in Spain. Cost me about 50 cents an hour when I use them.
Right.
And so my normal editing day now is I load up the computer in Finland, I load up the computer in Spain, and then I load up my own computer and I start working on 3 computers at the same time, generating, exporting, editing, bringing those 3 together.
Right. So let's go back to Comfy UI. Is that part of Comfy UI?
No.
What is okay?
So in a way, it's a.
So why maybe a different angle is why you chose Comfy UI to do the thing that you needed it to do.
Because it gave me the most freedom, because it's the whole like code in a way is like exposed. You can change the things in the workflow how you want it. It's not, and the main thing is all the other tools which I've seen, they again change the whole image. Right. Whereas this one, I was able to, just change that background, and I can easily still overlay my own camera footage on top.
And it's node based? Is that right? Is that right? And what does node based mean?
Node based basically means you've got, imagine there's a train, an old locomotive train with lots of different carriages.
Right.
And you start all the way at the back at the train, and you're going to walk all the way to the front of the locomotive. And as you're going, in each locomotive, there's someone that, let's
each carriage.
Each carriage. In each carriage, there's someone, for example, one person, like does your hair. One person gives you a new T-shirt. Yeah. One person gives you new shoes. And you go all the way till the very end, and then, you've got your new outfit.
Right.
But that's for any type of process, that each node is one of those carriages.
Like an instruction.
Exactly. And that does something specific to your image. Yeah. And it's chronological, so whatever you put in the beginning happens, or serial, exactly. Whatever happens in the beginning.
And is it quite complex? Can anyone get it, or is it sort of quite detailed?
It's quite complex still, but I think those, right now I'm working with the developers of that workflow as well to build it out more and make it more simple, and those things will become more simple. We're in that very early stage where, of course, there's lots of bugs and it is more complex.
You probably actually be able to have a conversation with it at some point.
I mean, my main thing is,
that's the dream.
I wanted to tell a story, and I found this tool opened a lot of doors to tell that story. Now I want to keep those doors open for others, but also I want to encourage people to open doors themselves, because we're living in such an insane time where you can, tell like stories you've never thought before. As a storyteller, I'm super excited, and the key thing as well is I don't think we'll keep watching stories just like as a 2D thing on our phone or even on a big screen. I think the way in which we experience stories is going to change, and I'm very keen on exploring not just the way we make stories, but the way we experience stories, and all of those stories that I'm planning to test with that and tell will be in that universe of what if little people lived inside your phone.
Brilliant. What do you think about if you were to give someone advice who has been in filmmaking for years? Because you've sort of graduated a few years ago, right? And you've got this brilliantly elastic, intelligent mind that grasps all this kind of new tech. Say someone's been, whether they've been a producer, director, anything in sort of traditional filmmaking. what advice would you give them that wouldn't immediately put them off, that would try and get them to explore this new area of technology that you sort of embraced?
I mean, the way I look at it, and the way I also, when I lecture or anything, I tell the students is, you know that scene in Nemo where there's the turtle that is swimming and gets into this slipstream, and all
I
of a
think
sudden
it's
goes through
probably
this
the
tunnel?
only ever scene I know from Nemo.
Exactly, very iconic scene.
Right.
But that's the way I look at it as well. You know, you can spend, you know, do a certain amount of effort, and even spend like 7 days a week, you know, working 24/7, trying to swim as fast as you can. But in the end, if you take a moment to swim lateral and just to find that perfect slipstream with that same amount of effort, or even with less effort, you're able to soar ahead. And that's, you know, what I've done is I've looked into, okay, where do I see slipstreams? And right now virtual production was one, and I went into it and was able to quite quickly build
Right.
up momentum. And, you know, same as with this workflow, I think there is lots of different slipstreams out there. And, you know, those slipstreams are not like this is the one for everyone. It depends also, you know, on your background. And I think
Right.
the key thing is to see what do you enjoy doing, and, you know, also, you know, this, I think the time of, like, you know, a software being created by a company and then being sold might change. Like, we're getting to a time where you can create those tools and software so easily and quickly yourself, that we might get to a point where if you've got a certain idea or you need a certain tool, you can literally create those tools yourself and go along that path. So I encourage, take a moment to swim laterally and just see where is a slipstream that aligns with me, that I'm interested in,
Right.
and where I do see some current going. Place yourself there and then go forward.
What would you be your what would you point where would you point people to?
Depends on their background and their interest.
There's no sort of
No, because it's all changing so insanely rapidly. I think that, and that's where as well it comes to. I think now's the time more than ever to do the thing that you really enjoy, because all the safe bets, you know, of, like, let's say I'm gonna study something like coding because I'll get lots of jobs, and, you know, if I would have done that like a couple years ago, you know, those things get replaced. We don't know what's gonna happen, where things are gonna go. So I just think, just do the thing that you enjoy, and, like, make the most out of that, and then in a way, you know, you can grow in that direction and use those AI tools. Like, don't be afraid to use them. Like, there is a path in which we can use those tools and still keep the human involved and still have it to push forward creativity. I mean, this project is very much an example of that. We were, you know, we used AI in lots of different ways in this project. But
so would you so that's a really good point, actually. I mean, if someone's you know wants to get involved with it and they don't know where to start, and they're not from a, you know, freshly out of university where they're sort of can experiment with these things, would you encourage people to actually just get hands on with a production? Because it's a big step, right, for someone who's grown up with computers, but when they first started, you know, they might not even had a mouse attached to the thing, right? And that hasn't been that long ago. And some people haven't even had to deal with that many computers, you know, sort of ever since, really. So is that a good segue? Because there's you know, you can go online, you can even talk to an AI bot about, you know, how can I do this, that, and the other, but it's sort of not even very human, right? It's like, is it sort of trying to find and encourage people to find productions that are sort of AI aligned so they can understand them a bit more?
The best way to learn is you learn most by just doing a certain project or other. I mean, I've come from an economics background, and then I went into film, and I've learned most of those just by, you know, by doing projects. I got into, you know, high-end virtual production with, I don't have a tech degree or anything else, but, you know, by just doing projects and learning on those. So I think taking a proactive stance, is good. And I think there's one interesting thing on, so the way a large language model works. I mean, it's a very complex, big thing, but one part of what it does is it basically tries to find the optimal function, any data or any AI model that you use, such as ChatGPT 5.2 or other. It's this kind of long equation that tries to find an optimum. And I think the key thing is, imagine it like this. You're in a desert, and your goal is to find the lowest point in that desert. And so what the AI does is it has, it's starting on one spot in the desert, and it looks around, it makes a little circle around its feet, and it thinks, okay, out of all these points, which point is going the most down? Okay, this point. All right, here, next, where do I go most down? Okay, because they want to find that lowest point. So what it does is it keeps looking, okay, how do I go further and further down? And as well, what it does is sometimes, you might get stuck in a little pit, because once you're there at a, local minima, is that everything around you goes up, but you might not be at the lowest point in the desert. So what it does, it adds a randomness factor to it. It teleports to different places in the desert.
Right.
And so key point I'm wanting to make here is it's a model that is using a formula how to get like the best, growth, or the best, how to become the best version of itself. And what it does is it makes decisions in a moment of, okay, what's the best path in this moment to go around, and it adds a randomness factor to that. And then it will find that lowest point. And, swimming parallel, looking for maybe another industry to step into or other, those are big randomness factors. And they, sometimes you can get into a point where everything is good, and, the biggest enemy of the great is the good, when you're in a spot where everything is nice, you've gotten to a good place. But then if you add a bit of randomness, you just jump to a new thing, you can further increase that. And in a way that makes me quite, not too worried about taking risks. I'm about to move to Madrid. I know that's a big randomness factor. And even though I've got like a good setup here in London, I get regularly jobs and I really enjoy it, I know that that extra randomness factor is going to have like a big influence. And if I take that with, looking for each moment, okay, what's the best path at this moment to go down? I get to that optimum. So
nice. And it's got really nice wine, and it's sunny in the summer.
It does, right? Exactly.
So tell us. So haven't got too much more time left. Two things. We're going to tell us a little bit more about the project that you filmed, as in a bit of an overview, and then we'll talk about sort of where people can come and hear you talk about it in person next week.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the project.
So, phone gets stolen. We go inside and see the detective. So
this so it's a sci-fi kind of thing.
Sci-fi, yes.
Miniatured down.
Sci-fi, vertical drama.
Right.
Wholesome. It's
you got PC, and it's people living within the phone.
Exactly.
Doing the job of what the phone does.
Exactly.
Electronics wise, but actually it humanizes it, right?
Exactly.
So you've got people, you got a bit like what was that film with the animated film?
Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Exactly.
So it's a bit like Inside Out, right?
Exactly.
You got little people inside the phone doing.
And there's so many things.
Cool.
When shuffle music just hits the spot, it's not just like a random algorithm. It's DJ Shuffle who's like DJing and who gets the right tracks, gets the right songs. And so that project, the way that we told that story has been, quite a new way. And I want to mainly show with this project that there is a path in which we can use AI in a way to help tell stories.
Right.
And that's like the key points, I think, with this project.
Right. And when's it out? When's it?
We're going to release it straight onto Instagram, Reels, TikTok, everything, as soon as post-production is done. We've got the whole post-production team is actually sitting in this room
Right, you.
right here.
Brilliant.
And it's
all on
quite
you,
a
right?
challenge, but yeah, so it's, it takes a second. It's lots of like, bug fixing,
Right.
but we're getting there definitely, and we're it's quite an exciting one. So we'll release those
Cool.
straight away.
And the stories that I say, just recount again. What's the story about? You got a detective that's based in the phone.
Exactly. So the detective has got the game plan, which tells him, okay, well, first thing you do, make a sound. Second, locate. Third,
And this is because someone's stolen the phone.
exactly, someone's
Right.
stolen the phone.
Got you.
And now it's also, ever wondered what happens when your phone gets stolen and you enable Find My Phone?
Right.
And now it's this little
And there's little
detective,
detective inside.
exactly, who's
Got you.
he's kind of bored. He's, as a security guard, you never get to do your job. You kind of just wait for something to happen, and now it's finally happening. His dream, he gets to live his dream. Be that great, kind of Ocean's 11 type Brad Pitt, security agent. It's fantastic.
Right.
But then all of a sudden the stakes get bigger because the thief is
No
about
spoilers.
to go.
No spoilers. Don't spoil
No
it for people.
spoilers.
All
No
right.
spoilers. The thief's about to go into airplane mode. And in that moment, he looks frantically at the game plan and sees, in that case, he needs to press the reset button.
Brilliant.
And in that moment, he has to choose between, am I gonna be that hero, and am I gonna do my job? Am I gonna, press that button at what cost? Or am I just gonna be there for my friends and just enjoy life, the silly life I had before, and not press the button? And it's a choice between career and personal life. One that the one that I am, oftentimes like that I have to make, especially with moving to Madrid and everything. So it's quite a personal story. It's a quirky, funny like concept, but we've added so much depth to the characters, and it's part of a series. So we're gonna make multiple episodes of this,
Cool.
and it's growing
Right.
very naturally, organically. We don't have like everything written out. It's kind of growing with each episode together.
Cool. And you're going to explain how you did it, I think, at an event
Yes,
next week
yes, definitely.
on the 22nd. Is it 22nd January?
Yeah.
In London. So
Yes.
quickly give us an overview of how you're going to tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly. 22nd, I'm going to be explaining how this film was made, how we were able to use a white wall to tell a whole sci-fi story, shoot 35 VFX shots in a little studio in London. This technique, it's opened so many doors for me as a storyteller, and I really want to spread this and make sure that, more people hear about what's possible nowadays. It's not just about this path or this workflow, but it's about that encouraging. So, if you want to see what's possible nowadays and want to leave the room feeling encouraged and ready to take on something new, then definitely
Brilliant.
come over.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. That was an amazing conversation. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're definitely experimenting, I think, more than most people have been able to, because of your background and your ability to be sort of that elastic mind within, using technology as well. Brilliant. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And I'll see you on Thursday.
Yes.
Brilliant.
See you on Thursday.